When I accompanied my aunt to the matchmaking meeting, the other party was extremely satisfied. After the two got married, they realized there had been a misunderstanding. The groom had mistaken me for the one he was meeting that day, but what's done cannot be undone. From then on, my aunt resented me, and the groom avoided me. My husband blames me for being too ostentatious. I am caught in the middle, having lived a life of frustration and died with deep regrets after being reborn. My sister-in-law asks me to accompany her to a matchmaking meeting. I shake my head. No, you go by yourself. Yang Yun was stunned. Sister-in-law, aren't you coming with me? I sat by the window embroidering, not even looking up as I made my stitches. Yes, I'm not going. Yang Yun grew anxious, sat down, and took hold of my arm. Sister-in-law, didn't we agree before? I'm an unmarried girl without a mother to look after me. How could I go alone? I had heard these words in my previous life. As the saying goes, a sister-in-law is like a mother, and arranging my sister-in-law's marriage is my duty. Moreover, I have a very good relationship with Yang Yun, so, in my previous life, I accompanied her there. Amid the dimming lights, we stood beneath the bridge, gazing from afar at the people on it. Yang Yun only glanced once before shyly lowering her head. He is so tall. I followed her gaze and noticed only that the person was tall and slender, with indistinct features. He seems a bit taller than your brother, doesn't he? Have you taken a liking to him? It looks like he's coming down now. Yang Yun blushed and pulled me away in a hurry. After we returned, the matchmaker relayed the message. He had fallen in love at first sight. It should have been an excellent marriage, but on the third day when she returned to her parents' home, her sister-in-law tearfully complained that on the wedding night, when the groom lifted the veil, he thought the wrong person had been sent. Then, was the person that day your sister? Yang Yun was stunned for a moment, then angrily cursed. That was my sister-in-law. I knew that man was a scoundrel. Yang Yun sobbed, filled with grievance. Sister-in-law, I know it wasn't your fault, but if you hadn't accompanied me that day, how could he have mistaken you for me? Not only did I not gain any favor, but I also severed the bond between sister-in-law and me. I lowered my eyes and tightened the needle and thread. Your brother dislikes it most when I show my face in public. Oh, is that so? Yang Yun smiled with sincerity. Then I'll go talk to my brother. He's sure to let you go. Let go of whom? That familiar, gentle voice sounded from behind. Yang Heng is back. Why did he finish his duties so early today? My heart skipped a beat. The needle pricked my fingertip, and a drop of blood welled up. I hid my hand, stood up, and bowed. Cousin. Yang Heng quietly observed me, his expression unreadable. Yang Yun chuckled softly. Cousin, you've been married for several years now. Why are you still as afraid of my brother as you were before? I clenched my hands tightly too. Before marrying Yang Heng, I was just one of his many cousins. I was not a good match for him. My parents passed away from illness when I was young, and I was taken in by the Yang family. Yang Heng's mother, who was also my aunt, treated me with immense compassion. However, due to my humble background, arranging a marriage was difficult. I was neither suitable for high-status families nor willing to settle for lower ones. When my aunt was bedridden with illness, she insisted on arranging the marriage between Yang Heng and me. Despite the Yang family's opposition at that time, they all said I was reaching too high, forcing me to give up on my own. When the news reached Yang Heng, he simply said that a mother's command could not be disobeyed, and he accepted the engagement. Thus, everyone thought he liked me. Only I knew that wasn't the case. In the past, my aunt made every effort to arrange things for me, and she once asked him to introduce his classmates and friends. Heng, your cousin's background may be a bit lacking, but isn't she so pretty? Could you help her make some connections? Perhaps someone will take a liking to her. Yang Heng put down his book, slowly raised his eyes, and stared at me for a moment. Truly beautiful. I lowered my head, my cheeks burning, thinking he was complimenting me, but then he changed his tone, like a splash of cold water to the face, but to serve others with. One's appearance is not the way of a proper wife. It was only later that I understood. Women of humble origins but striking beauty were the kind of marriage prospects that noble families avoided at all costs. Not only would they offer no advantage, but they could also tarnish one's reputation, causing others to bear the stigma of being lustful. Yang Heng was also unwilling. He hastily married me, without the formalities of 3 letters and 6 rights, nor the witness of relatives and friends. He simply closed the door and set up a banquet. and that was considered the ceremony after marriage. He rarely took me to social events in my previous life. After that misunderstanding occurred, he didn't even let me leave the house. I lived a cowardly life, accumulating depression until I fell ill and passed away. At the moment of death, I was in a daze. I recalled that year when I was mistaken for an unmarried maiden and admired. It turned out to be the only time in my life I was ever liked. Filled with resentment, I clung to Yang Heng and spoke harsh words to him. Yang Heng, back then everyone said I was reaching too high, but looking at it now, even without you, I probably wouldn't have married poorly. Seeing his face turn deathly pale, I finally felt relieved, swallowing that breath of anger. But when I opened my eyes again, I saw him once more. My chest felt a bit tight. 3. This is what we call mutual respect and courtesy. Yang Heng sat down, took my hand, and pressed a handkerchief against my fingertips. He had actually noticed that little injury. I was taken aback for a moment and instinctively tried to pull my hand back, but he held it tightly. What were you just saying? Brother, I want my sister-in-law to accompany me to meet potential suitors. For the sake of my lifelong happiness, you'll agree, won't you? I waited for his response. In my previous life, he casually said, go ahead, not giving much thought to such a trivial matter, but this time, he said, no. I was stunned. Yang Heng tightened his grip on my hand and said coldly, go by yourself if you want to, but don't take her with you. Yang Yun was incredulous. You want me to go alone? Yang Heng nodded calmly. If you really take her with you, do you think they'll still be interested in you? This remark made Yang Yun so angry that he stomped his feet. Brother, you're far too infatuated with your wife. He's the heir of the Ningen Marquis's household. How could he possibly be interested in a married woman? Yang Heng narrowed his eyes slightly, his breathing growing heavier. Who knows, with someone like that? My mind is in complete chaos. He must have been reborn. He is guarding against Rong Chen. Brother, why are you being so unreasonable? How can I go alone? Then don't go. Yang Heng's tone was straightforward. The Ningen Marquis's household is too high in status and not a good match for you. Yang Yun was furious. Do you know how many people want to see him but never get the chance? He finally agreed to take a distant look. What if he takes a liking to me? What if? Yang Heng seemed lost in thought for a moment before suddenly letting out an exasperated laugh. I'm afraid he's already taken a liking to you. Yang Yun felt a bit embarrassed and cleared his throat lightly. Brother, this concerns my lifelong happiness. Please let sister-in-law accompany me there. What do you think? Yang Heng suddenly turned to ask me. I was taken aback, picked up the embroidery hoop, and ran my fingertips over the delicate stitches. I won't go. Better to avoid stirring up romantic entanglements, but my sister-in-law wouldn't hear of it. After much back and forth, Yang Heng finally relented and allowed me to accompany her. I was surprised. Could it be that I was mistaken, and he hadn't been reborn? But the next moment, he stood up. I'll go with you, for unlike in my previous life, with my husband Yang Heng accompanying us, we no longer had to gaze from afar at the son of the Marquis of Ningen. Yang Heng reserved a private room and invited him to meet. Brother, do you know Rong Shizi? We were classmates in the past. Yang Heng was inexplicably cold. This reminded me of my youth. That year, my aunt arranged a marriage for me, but as a commoner orphan, my path to marriage was fraught with difficulties at that time. Yang Heng entered the Imperial College to study, yet he refused to introduce me. My aunt then had an idea, often having me dress up carefully to deliver things to my cousin. The Imperial College was filled with young men who were either wealthy or of noble status. She was afraid I was too foolish and reminded me, if anyone asks about your identity, just say you're Yang Heng's sister. Don't go into too much detail. We need to be cautious. I went even though cousin Yang Heng wasn't familiar with me. I shamelessly tried to win his favor. However, every time he told his classmates I was his maid, I would quietly insist beside him, I'm his sister. After many times, Yang Heng understood what I was doing and forbade me from going to see him again. I suppose he thought I was desperate to marry, which brought him great shame. It was indeed shameful. In the vast Imperial College, not a single person took a liking to me. Lost in thought, someone entered. I snapped back to reality and quickly stood up. Yang Heng stepped in front of me. Lord Rong, this is my sister, and this is my wife. He deliberately emphasized the word wife, enunciating each syllable clearly. Make sure you don't mistake her for someone else. He was somewhat unreasonable. But the visitor was impeccably polite. "Lord Yang, Miss Yang, good day." Rong Chen paused for a moment, turning his gaze toward me. "Greetings, Lady Yang." Only then did I clearly see Rong Chen's appearance, truly as handsome as the rumors outside suggested. It's rather amusing to say, in my past life, he caused me great suffering, yet I never even got a clear look at what he looked like except for that vague figure on the bridge that night. Later, he married Yang. Yunand, aware of his grave mistake, avoided meeting me at every turn. The only intersection was that early spring when my cat ran out of the garden with a handkerchief in its mouth. At that time, Rong Chen and Yang Yun were in the process of divorcing. He came to the mansion to discuss matters, caught the cat for me, and personally returned it through the orchid screen. I heard him address me properly, sister-in-law. The resentment in my heart dissipated by more than half. Although Rong Chen holds a prominent position, he is, after all, young, 3 years younger than me. He hasn't done anything wrong, he just misjudged the situation. The cat was returned, but the handkerchief was nowhere to be found. Behind the screen, a gentleman of noble character sat upright. "Sister-in-law, I haven't seen the handkerchief. Perhaps the cat played with it and lost it." I was suffering from spring fatigue, looking weary and listless. "Never mind, it's not important. You may go." That evening, when Yenheng learned of it, he issued a strict order forbidding outsiders from entering. From then on, until my death, I never saw Rong Chen again. As for that handkerchief, it was later found in Yang Heng's study. I think I misunderstood Rong Chen. He didn't steal my things. 5. Although it is a private room, we are still seated separately. Yang Heng and Rong Chen sat by the window, while Yang Yun and I were seated at another table, separated by a screen. We couldn't see them, but we could hear their voices. "The young master is not yet married, so I suppose his standards are quite high," Rong Chen said calmly. "If it doesn't catch the eye, one naturally becomes picky. If it does, then nothing else matters." Yang Heng sneered, his meaning unclear. I tightened my grip on the handkerchief. What could be done after marrying someone? In my past life, Rong Chen was very proper. A calm, unruffled voice came from beside me. "If you truly marry someone, then it can only be a pity." "That's good." Yang Heng clinked glasses with him. Yang Yun whispered to me, "Has my brother gone mad?" "I told you, how could anyone like a married woman?" Distracted, I accidentally knocked over my wine glass. Both of them looked at me, and I instantly felt as if sitting on pins and needles. I used the excuse of changing clothes to escape and get some fresh air. I leaned against the railing, gazing at the starry sky. From now on, Rong Chen wouldn't mistake me for someone else, nor would he have any further connection with me. Perhaps the previous life was just a prophetic dream, and this life wouldn't be so unlucky. I clasp my hands together and pray to the heavens. A swift evening breeze sweeps in, snatching the handkerchief from my fingertips. I turn around and chase after it around the corner, where a tall figure stands, slowly bending down to pick up the handkerchief at his feet. What a coincidence, it's Rong Chen. I calm my emotions and step forward to greet him. "Your Highness, the Crown Prince." Rong Chen nods in return, his expression as calm as ever. I wait for him, but he remains still, his gaze lost in thought. I was stunned. "Young master, that handkerchief is mine." Rong Chen finally snapped back to reality. He handed the handkerchief toward me, but just as it was about to fall into my palm, he suddenly changed his mind and pulled it back. I looked at him in confusion. Rong Chen helplessly curved the corners of his lips. "Sister-in-law, this time I have no cat to frame." I froze in place. He remembers the turmoil of past lives. I remember. Yang Heng remembers. Even he remembers. Heaven has played such a big joke. I was left speechless. The affectionate wind gently caresses our foreheads. "Sister-in-law, you've returned as well." 6. The person lowered their head, took half a step forward, their eyes shimmering with emotion. It must be that heaven takes pity on lovers. I simply found it utterly incomprehensible and took a big step back. Are you insane? Who said we were lovers? With such a handsome appearance, he actually suffers from hysteria. Rong Chen was stunned. "But I heard that on your deathbed, you were still thinking of me." And Yang Heng was so enraged that he fell gravely ill. "I deeply regret not realizing your feelings back then, letting you slip away." And soon after, I too fell seriously ill and passed away. I was stunned. Because of that one sentence, did I actually cause Yang Heng to die from anger? He truly couldn't bear the humiliation. Could it be that the rumors are untrue? Rong Chen's gaze held inquiry. Along with a hint of barely noticeable anticipation, I didn't dare to look at him. The rumors are true, but it was just a remark made in anger. The figure before me clearly stiffened. I don't know how much time passed before I quietly looked up to observe his expression. Your Highness, are you all right? Rong Chen snapped back to reality, stared at me with a sorrowful gaze, and then forced a self-mocking smile. So that's how it is. I was wondering, if you had feelings for me, how could I have been completely unaware? He lowered his voice, as if speaking to himself. So it was just wishful thinking. I was left speechless. Who would have thought that one sentence would cost him his life? Lord Rong, I didn't mean to. Don't say it. Don't say it was just a slip of the tongue. Rong Chen hurriedly raised his hand to interrupt me. I understand your feelings now. You don't need to take responsibility for my death. He stood with me for a while. Then, as if realizing something belatedly, carefully folded the handkerchief and respectfully handed it to me with both hands. Please consider those frivolous and foolish words you just heard as if they were never spoken. Madam, I steadied myself and reached out to take it. A cold voice suddenly interjected, shattering the tense and delicate atmosphere. Madam, you are here. Yang Heng walked over, took my hand, and looked at Rong Chen expressionlessly, pulling the handkerchief over and tucking it into his sleeve. Your Highness, in the dead of night, what are you saying to my wife? Rong Chen withdrew his hand, his eyes dimming. Just reminiscing about old times. Is that not allowed? Yang Heng said. We've only met once. What old times could we possibly reminisce about? I didn't understand. When did Rong Chen and I ever meet? I can't seem to recall. Thinking this in my heart, I voiced it aloud. Have we met before? Rong Chen was stunned, frowning at me, a mist of tears welling up in his eyes, as if feeling wronged. The Imperial College, you don't remember someone like me. I was so shocked that I forgot to speak until someone gave my wrist a firm squeeze. I turned around in pain. Cousin, if you've forgotten, then let it be. Yang Heng looked at me with a forced smile. Madam, it's late. Let's go back. Yang Yun had also come out to look for us. It seems tonight will end like this. Yang Yun and I boarded the carriage. While Yang Heng and Rong Chen bid their farewells, I rolled up the carriage curtain and couldn't help but look at Rong Chen, trying to recall where I had seen him before. A moment later, as if sensing my gaze, he slightly turned his face and met my eyes. I hastily let go and dropped the curtain. I remembered when I had seen him before 5 years ago, during a heavy snowfall in the evening. A servant from the Yang family ran back and said that on the way back from the Imperial College, the road was covered with thick ice, making passage difficult. Many carriages were at a standstill, and even Yang Heng was stuck on the road. It was bitterly cold outside, and my aunt was worried he might catch a chill. I braved the wind and snow to go pick up Yang Heng. When I reached that road, it was blocked by over 10 carriages, lined up one after another, making it impossible to move an inch. Yang Heng was stunned to see me arrive. Why did you come on such a cold day? I also brought hot ginger soup to help him ward off the cold. Cousin, this ice won't melt anytime soon. I brought a raincoat and a bamboo hat. Let's take the horses and find another way back. We can pull the carriage to the side of the road so it doesn't block the way, and leave 2 servants to guard it. His face was red from the cold, and he held on to the bowl without letting go, muttering, as you wish. Before leaving, Yang Heng bid farewell to his classmates who were also trapped in this situation. At that time, there was one person whose family had an urgent matter and also wanted to abandon the carriage and ride a horse, but outside, the snow was falling heavily. Your straw raincoat is quite nice. A handsome young man leaned out of the carriage window, his tone full of admiration. Yang Heng said dismissively, in the capital, lightweight fur garments are in fashion. Who still wears straw raincoats and bamboo hats? Only someone with such rustic habits would. I couldn't help but argue. Fur clothes can only be worn after the snow stops. Right now, they'd get soaked through. Yang Heng glared at me with displeasure. The young man noticed me, his gaze faltering for a moment as he instinctively asked, She is a maid in my room. Yang Heng lied. No, I am Yang Heng's sister. I keep my aunt's advice in mind, making an effort to get to know more young people. This raincoat and hat were made by my own hands, and I brought an extra set. If you don't mind, I can give them to you, then you can hurry home. The man nodded and agreed with a smile. Yang Heng, however, was very displeased and pulled me away to a distance. Who told you to give things away so casually? I don't understand. When I give it to him, he doesn't value it. When I give it to someone else, he's unhappy. It wasn't casual at all. I saw that my cousin is on good terms with him, so he must be a decent person too. Then why did you deny it when I said you were a maid? That was never the case. Besides, it was my aunt who instructed me to introduce myself as your younger sister when we're outside. Unexpectedly, Yang Heng fell into deep thought, his expression growing increasingly grim. So that's it. No wonder you've been so attentive to me lately. You and mother had this kind of scheme in mind. He tossed me aside and mounted his horse. After returning, I went to see my aunt in a rage, though I'm not sure what was said. But from then on, Yang Heng no longer allowed me to go to the Imperial College, and my aunt stopped rushing to find me a match. As for the raincoat and hat I sent, I never received any good news in return. When spring arrived, it was actually the Yang family's daughter who received 2 pots of orchids from the Ningen Marquis's household, along with an invitation to visit. At that time, Yang Yun was still young, and my aunt refused. I completely gave up hope. Yang Yun was just a child of a few years old, and there were noble families inquiring about him, yet no one paid any attention to me. Now, if that young man is Rong Chen, everything makes sense to me. Those 2 pots of orchids are for me. What are you thinking about? Yang Heng got into the car and sat next to me. Nothing. I turned my head away, not looking at him that evening. Yang Heng changed his usual ways. Instead of heading straight home, he took me and Yang Yun to stroll through the market. The bustling voices and brilliant lights made me truly feel reborn in my previous life. Yang Heng never accompanied me out. If there was something to buy, he would always have the shopkeeper come to the mansion. Now that I've been reborn, he has truly changed, asking me if I like every rouge, powder, silk, and satin. He even personally puts the hairpin in my hair for me. If it were the old me, I would have been overwhelmed with flattery, but there is a lifetime between us now, like biting into a peach that has been stored for too long, expecting it to be fresh and sweet, only to find it tasteless upon tasting. 7. After returning that evening, I waited for several days, but there was no news from the Ningen Marquis estate. Yang Yun was listless. It seems I wasn't chosen. I stared at her, carefully choosing my words. Yun, do you truly like that Rong heir? In the previous life, Yang Yun's feelings for Rong Chen could hardly be called love, not to mention the wedding night, which ended in discord. On the 2nd day after the wedding, Rong Chen proposed a divorce, but no matter what conditions were offered, Yang Yun refused to agree. You covet my sister-in-law, and you still want a divorce, so you can go and interfere. Dream on. Rong Chen suppressed his temper. You're talking nonsense. I'm not that kind of person. Yang Yun, however, was determined to fight him to the death. Who cares what kind of person you are? In any case, it's easier to invite a god than to send one away. I am determined to secure the position of the heir's wife. The two had been living apart for many years. Later, it was Yang Yun who changed her mind and agreed to the separation. Looking back, aside from dragging out the separation, Yang Yun made no moves to get close to Rong Chen. Even during tonight's meeting, she was careless and didn't pay constant attention to him. I like it. That's the Ningen Marquis estate, the family of the current empress. Last time I saw the marquise, her entourage was so grand that we'd have to tear down our gate just to let her in. I remained silent for a long while. I'm asking about the person, not the Ningen Marquis estate. As for the person, they're quite good looking. That's it. There's nothing else. She thought carefully again. If there's anything else, it's just that I feel he doesn't get along with my brother. It seems she really didn't take a liking to Rong Chen. That's fine. It saves us from a doomed relationship. Yang Heng was not at all surprised. It's normal not to be interested. If she were, I'd have to suspect ulterior motives. Yang Yun, after all, was still a young lady and was unhappy with his words. Brother always talks like this. Besides sister-in-law, who in the world could stand it? Yang Heng listened, remaining silent for a long while before suddenly asking, do you really think she can bear it? I arrived outside the study just in time to hear these words. Of course, sister-in-law likes you so much. When you were studying at the Imperial College, on that snowy day, she went to pick you up. For some reason, you two argued. You rode back on horseback, while she walked back in the snow and fell ill for over half a month. I quietly stopped in my tracks. I want to hear how Yenheng replies. Ha, You don't know, she wasn't doing it for me, but for herself. Yenheng's voice was still as cold and familiar as ever. Just like him, though I am disappointed, I feel at peace for a moment. I believed Rong Chen's words, that in my past life, Yang Heng died because of me, and I thought he truly cared for me. It seems that wasn't the case. He simply couldn't accept that my final words had stripped him of all dignity, so his death was also for himself. Inside the room, Yang Yun paused, speaking earnestly. Brother, you can't say that about cousin. You promised mother you would take good care of her. Otherwise, why would mother have betrothed her to you? And your reckless actions back then were already the worst of. I pushed the door open and entered, interrupting the conversation. An invitation has been sent. 8 every spring. The Empress prays for blessings at the temple, and the temple gates are closed for 3 days, with commoners not allowed to enter. With the temple's peach blossoms in full bloom, not wanting to let them go to waste, a flower viewing banquet was organized. Over time, it became a gathering for noble families to meet and socialize, and this flower viewing invitation, issued by the Empress's palace, is priceless and hard to come by. This was the first time Yang Yun had ever been invited. Sister-in-law, please accompany me. Can I really go? Yang Heng took the invitation and looked it over again and again. This time, she really can't go. The invitation clearly states the names. Yang Yun refused to give up. Is there only one invitation? Brother, can you get another one somewhere? Yang Heng smiled coldly. How could I possibly have that ability? I lowered my gaze, clutching the invitation hidden in my sleeve, my fingertips faintly burning. Actually, I have some too, I just don't know how to say it. Yang Heng noticed my unease. What's wrong with you? He came over to take my hand, but his movement suddenly halted as he took the invitation from my grasp. Sister-in-law also received one. Why didn't you say anything? Yang Heng looked it over, his face turning ashen. Yang Yun also leaned in. Indeed, 2 invitations were received, one for the eldest daughter of the Yang family, and the other for the Yu family's daughter, Yu Ning. I am Yu Ning. Perhaps the palace didn't inquire clearly and didn't know that sister-in-law is already married. Should we send it back to be amended? Yang Yun looked around, observing the expressions of those present. Or perhaps, it doesn't need to be amended. Yang Heng gripped the invitation tightly, his fingertips turning white from the force. You already know about this person. How could you not know this? I took back the post. Why overthink it? It's just about being thorough. Back then, there were no formal betrothal documents, and the household registration wasn't even changed, so it really doesn't count as a marriage. Yang Heng laughed in anger. It's been over 3 years, and you don't want to acknowledge this marriage anymore. I met his gaze and said word by word, I acknowledge it, but the laws and customs do not. Back then, my aunt was seriously ill, and Yenheng married me under the pretext of bringing good fortune to her. It was reasonable, but it did not conform to the laws and customs. There wasn't even time to send someone to my hometown to complete the household registration procedures. Perhaps the palace intended to invite Yang Heng's wife, but upon finding no such person, they had no choice but to address the invitation this way. Yang Heng frowned. When I married you back then, it was indeed rushed, but don't you understand, if my mother had passed away, there would have been a 3-year mourning period, and I was afraid there might be further complications. He suddenly stopped speaking and no longer argued with me. Forget it, if you care, I can make it up to you. 3 years had passed, and he never thought of making it up. Now that he had been reborn and remembered, was it for my sake? Is it because of Rong Chen? I don't mind, and there's no need to make up for it. I looked at Yang Heng calmly and raised the invitation. However, since I've been invited, may I go now? Yang Heng was clearly reluctant, yet he said, go if you want to. He then instructed Yang Yun, keep an eye on things for me. Yang Yun nodded in assurance. 9. The mountain temple was ancient and simple, with wildflowers blooming in full splendor. The banquet was exceptionally lively, but what drew the most attention was the highly sought-after Ningen Marquis estate. Rong Chen, the heir of the Marquis estate and the nephew of the Empress, was at the age for marriage. It was said that the Marchioness had issued an ultimatum, insisting that he marry and start a family this year. As a result, women from various families brought their daughters to mingle in front of the Marchioness of Ningen. As everyone gathered around, The space around me became conspicuously empty. I was just about to go find Yang Yun when someone called out to me, "The lady of Ningen who wanted to see me." I went over, everyone looked me over, but no one recognized me. "You are the niece of Madame Yu from the third branch of the Yang family, and the cousin of that little girl Yang Yun, right? I haven't socialized for many years, so I feel a bit uneasy." "Yes," Lady Ningen, who sized me up, her eyes lighting up slightly. "That's fine. Just don't make a mistake this time." She waved her hand at me with a smile. "I have nothing more to ask you here. Go and enjoy yourself." I was taken aback for a moment, then went down, but I couldn't help thinking, what does it mean not to make a mistake this time? Could it be that mistakes were made before? Unable to find Yang Yun, I returned to the meditation room. Not long after sitting down, someone knocked on the door. "Ah Yun, you're back. Why is it you?" Unexpectedly, it was actually Rong Chen, dressed in white with a jade belt, his hair tied up in a golden crown. He looked like an immortal descending to the mortal world. "No wonder you're here to meet the young lady, dressed so splendidly and dazzlingly. The banquet has started." "Up front, I didn't see you by Yan Yun's side, so I guessed you probably weren't going to eat." He slightly lowered his head, offering the food box in his hand forward, his voice carrying a hint of coaxing. "Sister-in-law, it's been a long time. I had the temple prepare some eel noodles. Would you like to try them?" I stared at him blankly. "This is meat, isn't it?" Rong Chen was quite calm. "Vegetarian food doesn't taste good." While I was still shocked that he dared to sneak meat into the temple, he had already slipped in sideways and closed the door behind him. "Hurry up." Coming to my senses, the bowls and chopsticks were set, the aroma enticing. It seems I have no choice but to eat. After finishing a bowl of noodles, my whole body felt comfortable. "Prince, in this lifetime, you and Yang Yun have no connection anymore, so there's no need to call me sister-in-law anymore." He slowly gathered the bowls and chopsticks, lifting his eyes to look at me. "It is indeed inappropriate, but I haven't figured out how to address you, Miss Yu, or your name." "Ning, Madam Yang," I repeated. "Just call me Madam Yang." His fingers, which were tidying the food box, paused. "No." He looked up and stared at me intently. "Do others call you that too, or is it only me who has to follow this rule?" I inadvertently noticed his fingers, which had a few small burns, and my heart skipped a beat. Could it be that he cooked himself? Forget it. One who eats another's food is bound to speak kindly of them. "As you wish." Rong Chen nodded and calmly negotiated. "Then I'll compromise and call you Madam." The word Yang doesn't sound pleasant. How is that a compromise? It's clearly a step forward. "Why do you say that? Whenever I meet a married woman, I always address her as Madam." "That's just being unreasonable." "Then you call me Madam. What will you call your own wife in the future?" he said casually. Ning, I didn't catch on. "Her." Rong Chen stared at me blankly, his gaze innocent and straightforward. "My future wife is called Ning. I drove this scoundrel out the door." Through the door, I heard him whisper, "Shall I come again tomorrow?" "No need," I snapped irritably. "I don't want to see you." The next day, someone knocked on the door again. I went to open it, only to find an unfamiliar maid standing there. Yang Yun was surprised. "Sister-in-law, does the temple have a small kitchen where you can cook?" The maid bowed gracefully and said it was sent by the Lady of Ningen. Marquisate. All the close younger relatives received some, as it was prepared by a chef invited from a restaurant. Yang Yun was just complaining about the poor food at the temple. Upon hearing this, she immediately returned. Only then did the maid smile and hand the food box to me. "However, this portion for you, miss, was personally made by our young master." My heart was in turmoil, and I hurriedly took it, expressing my thanks. "In the mountains, the days are short and the nights long." Though we were in the same mountain, if Rong Chen didn't deliberately seek me out, we wouldn't meet. I received a letter from Yang Heng. In his letter, he said that after much consideration, he had decided to hold a grand wedding for me and hoped I wouldn't be angry with him. He also said that in 3 days, he would personally come to pick up me and Yang Yun. I folded the letter and looked up at the moon. This rare piece was about to end when I turned back. It seemed as if I saw Rong Chen standing at the end of the corridor. I steadied myself, but the figure was gone again, leaving only a sense of emptiness and melancholy. 10 On the third day, everyone was preparing to descend the mountain. Yang Yun, having heard some rumor, insisted on breaking off a few peach blossom branches to take back, claiming they would bring good luck in love. I had no choice but to accompany her into the grove. Yang Yun walked too fast and got separated from me within half an hour. I searched everywhere for help and happened to run into Rong Chen. The guards in the mountains haven't been withdrawn, so you don't need to worry too much. He accompanied me in the search. A moment later, I found it right by the stream. Yang Yun was talking to an unfamiliar man. I was anxious to go over, but Rong Chen held me back. Did you see clearly who that is? I just realized that person looked very familiar. Isn't that General Shen's only son? In her previous life, Yang Yun was willing to divorce Rong Chen because she accidentally slept with Shenju. Shenju wasn't cunning, he was very innocent and vowed to stay with her for a lifetime, but General Shen only has this one son. How could he let Yang Yun toy with him without any status or recognition? So he simply threw caution to the wind, dragged Shenju to their doorstep, and insisted on a divorce, no matter the cost. Later, the two got married. Their relationship became incredibly strong, and they even had a pair of twins. Rong Chen nodded. So you shouldn't go over there. I really didn't go over, because Yang Yun saw me and even winked and waved at me, meaning for me not to go over, so I took Rong Chen away with me. Strolling through the mountains, he casually plucked a peach blossom and gave it to me. I didn't answer these past few days. He has always been like this, doing ambiguous things. I don't even know what he really wants. I was about to speak my mind, but he beat me to it. Yu Ning, is the person in your heart still Yang Heng? I dealt with him expressionlessly. Yes, no, so what? Rong Chen stopped, turned to look at me, and spoke with righteous indignation. If it is, I will have him marry you and give you the status of Lady Yang that you desire. If not, I'll help you break free. Why stay trapped by his side, living a lifetime of unhappiness, only to take a final breath of defiance at the end? The mountain forest was silent, with only his voice carried by the gentle breeze into my ears. How will you help me? I asked calmly, scrutinizing him. By marrying me instead. Rong Chen met my gaze and gently shook his head. If you are unwilling, I will not force you, but Yang Heng has kept you confined in his home without marrying you. I will have the Empress intervene to grant you your freedom. The dowry you brought to the Yang family since childhood will also be returned to you. He looked at me with a determined gaze. Yu Ning, I only need one word from you. I will not leave you with nowhere to stand. My heart trembled violently. Could there really be such a person, helping me without asking for anything in return? My vision blurred slightly. Rong Chen remained completely unaware and continued to persuade. It's true that if you break free, there might be some criticism when it comes to marriage discussions, but I think you don't live for others, and there are still many people who like you. He fell silent again, this time for a long while before he mustered the courage. Of course, if you're willing, I'll marry you. I didn't dare say this to you before, afraid you'd think I was unwilling to accept it, that I just wanted to take you away from him, but I only want you to be happy. He lowered his head, holding that flower in his hand. His knuckles tightened again and again. After all is said and done, you are the most wonderful girl in my heart. If being Lady Yang brings you joy, then I will be joyful too. I was momentarily stunned. It wasn't until a tear slid from the corner of my eye that I snapped back to reality, trembling as I reached out to take that peach blossom branch. It's not anymore. What? He looked at me, puzzled, my eyes blurred with tears, my voice trembling lightly. The person in my heart is not Yang Heng. It was never him in the past, nor will it be him in the future. Rong Chen saw my tears, reached out a fingertip, but withdrew it just before touching me. I understand, don't cry. We gazed into each other's eyes for a long time, saying nothing, and nothing needed to be said until someone intruded into this space. Yu Ning, what are you doing here? Didn't I say to wait for you all in front of the temple? It was Yang Heng, who had come up the mountain to fetch us. 11. Why is it always the young master? Do you enjoy talking to my wife so much? Rong Chen caught sight of Yang Heng and no longer avoided his gaze. Without matchmakers or betrothal gifts, she is not your wife. Yang Heng sneered. Then she is my woman. Whatever you say now is too late. These words seemed to hit Rong Chen's sore spot. He took half a step forward, clenched his fists, and his body trembled slightly. Back then, it was you who told me she was your biological sister. I sent someone to propose marriage, but your mother said your sister was still too young and not considering marriage for the time being. Yang Heng suddenly changed his expression and tried to pull me away. Don't listen to his nonsense. But I refused, breaking free from his grip, and looked at Rong Chen with disbelief. You proposed marriage. At my question, Rong Chen's expression shifted from sorrow to grievance, his eyes gradually reddening. I had my mother send invitations to the Yang family multiple times, but unfortunately, Madame Yang fell ill, and Yang Yun never left the house. Later, there was a 3-year mourning period. I waited until it was over and immediately sent someone to inquire. But you... He took a deep breath, glaring at Yang Heng with immense hatred. I once regarded you as an elder brother, believing you to be a gentleman, yet not only did you deceive me, but you also feared that I might one day learn the truth. Before the mourning period, you used tricks to coax her into following you, taking advantage of her lack of support. You are selfish, despicable, shameless, and faithless. I was completely stunned, my chest tight, and I looked up at Yang Heng. So, back then, your urgency wasn't to save Auntie by rushing the wedding, but because you were afraid that during your mourning period, someone else might propose to me. Yang Heng looked down at me, his tone uneasy. Ning Ning, don't believe what he says. I just don't want you to wait for me. He suddenly laughed, gently stroking my hair. Besides, why would I be afraid of him coming to propose? If he comes, would you really not marry me? I gazed at those familiar brows and eyes, disappointment spilling from my throat, weighing my voice down until it grew faint. Cousin, you shouldn't have done this. Aunt has been kind to me, so I've been kind to you and Yang Yun. If Aunt wants me to marry you, I will naturally marry you. Yen Heng couldn't believe what he was hearing, his face frozen and filled with embarrassment. Besides that, didn't you ever have feelings for me? Cousin, do you like it? I raised my eyes to look at him, my tone innocent and naive. What do I like about you? You said I rely on my looks to serve others. Yet you took me in and won't let me leave the house. Honestly, I thought you didn't like me either. Suddenly, my wrist was gripped with great force. Say it again, that you've never liked me, and see what happens. Yang Heng forced me to meet his gaze, his eyes filled with pleading. All these years, seeing each other day and night, living and resting together, how can you say you've never liked me? Not even for a moment. I remained completely unmoved. I wanted to, and I even tried. But how can someone like a person who looks down on them, not even for a moment? Yang Heng stared at me intently, and after what felt like an eternity, tears welled up in his eyes. What I thought was right. You only feel hatred toward me. At that moment, Rong Chen pulled his arm away and pushed him aside. You are not allowed to touch her again. Yang Heng was caught off guard and fell heavily to the ground, but he ignored the pain, lifted his head to look at me, tears streaming down his face. I know, I haven't treated you well. I want to change. I started changing as soon as I came back. I took you shopping, allowed you to go out, and I even wanted to make up for the wedding. Why won't you give me a chance? He was filled with self-blame and frustration, unable to understand. I spoke calmly. Cousin, being reborn in this life is meant to give me a fresh start, not for you to correct mistakes. So it was you. Yang Heng froze, suddenly understanding. So it was you who came back. I am too. Rong Chen looked at him calmly. Yang Heng, being reborn in this life is meant to grant me a new life, not for you to find and fix flaws. You died too. Yang Heng suddenly found the strength and slowly got up. You stole her handkerchief in your previous life. You're not a good person. Luckily, I took it back and told you never to come to our door again. Someone like you, it's good that you're dead. I glanced sideways at Rong Chen. He didn't dare to meet my gaze. The tips of his ears flushed as red as blood. I didn't steal it. I found it. I died of lovesickness. You died of anger. You brought it on yourself. Yang Heng laughed mockingly. I died for love. You died of delusional disorder, lovesickness, hysteria. The two of them argued until their faces were flushed red. It wasn't until Yang Yun appeared holding a peach blossom that they finally stopped, because Yang Heng turned to scold her, his emotions running high. Didn't I tell you to keep an eye on her? What were you doing? Yang Yun was terrified. Brother, I was wrong. Please don't cry. Shinju couldn't understand the situation, but he took the initiative to take responsibility. Lord Yang, it's all my fault. Yang Heng, in a fit of anger, glanced at Shinju. It's none of your business, brother-in-law. Shinju, brother, what are you talking about? Yang Yun's cheeks flushed red, her eyes darting around. Slip of the tongue, slip of the tongue. Yang Heng was extremely annoyed. He turned around and saw me, our eyes meeting. Ningning cousin, are you still coming home with me? I gazed at Yang Heng, clutching the peach blossom in my hand as if holding on to my reborn self. No, the reborn me spoke with a clear and powerful voice. She said, Yang Heng, let's part ways. 12. I stayed at the inn where I first settled when I arrived in the capital. Yang Heng knew where it was. He came to see me. Back then, I never thought there was any need to pay attention to formalities, but now we've parted just like that. Without even leaving a proper divorce agreement between us, I said it was fine. Yang Heng pretended to joke, but in the end, he was filled with regret. Why didn't we think to make it official earlier? If we had the marriage certificate, at least it would prove that we were once husband and wife. I calmly resolved his confusion. Because the Yang family still harbors the intention of having you marry someone else, no one will bring this up. Besides, I have no relatives to look after me. Yang Heng fell silent for a moment, his voice choked with emotion. Both Ayun and I are your family. He placed the small locked box on the table. In here, besides your dowry, there is also the additional gift my mother gave you back then. I told Ayun about our separation, and she said the Ningen Marquis mansion is generous, so she added another gift. I also put some in. I placed my hand on the box. Ayun, does she blame me? Yen Heng said in a muffled voice. She blames me, she said. Rong Chen is indeed better than me, and I held you back. I let out a sigh. I may not marry him. Yang Heng heard these words, his fingertips suddenly trembling, then slowly curling up, digging into his palm. If my cousin wants to marry, she can marry him. At least he is sincere toward you. Both in this life and the last, I see it clearly. I neither confirmed nor denied it. Yang Heng then stood up and left. Before leaving, he walked to the door, hesitated again and again, then turned back to look at me. If you wish, you can leave for the wedding from my mother's residence. I didn't understand what was going on. He seemed to hold back his words, biting his lip. Mother, she told me that when I marry you, you should depart from her courtyard. She said she is your family, not your mother-in-law, and that I must treat you well. I was stunned, my eyes brimming with tears. My chest was filled with dense, overwhelming longing. Perhaps it was not divine mercy, but rather my dearest kin could not bear to see me die in vain. Yang Heng covered his eyes with his hand and actually began to cry softly. Mother, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have begged you to promise Ningning to me. Half a year later, I still married Rong Chen. He wasn't in a hurry, but his mother was. The lady of Ningen Marquis, the Empress's sister-in-law, condescended to see me, saying she already knew about my situation and that I should have no worries. It's all my fault. If I had personally gone to the Yang family back then and had her bring out all the girls, I would have definitely recognized you as the one he liked. Back then, he spoke with such certainty, but when I met Yang Yun, I felt something was off. Beauty often comes with twists and turns. I myself married the wrong person before, and marrying a few more times is just part of the journey. Lady Ningen was remarkably open-minded. No wonder she could raise someone like Rong Chen. The worry in my heart instantly lightened. Thus, in September, I got married. I left from the Yang residence. The Osmanthus tree in my aunt's courtyard was exceptionally fragrant that day. Like the blessings of an elder, Rong Chen held the red silk to lead me into the bridal sedan. As I bent down to enter, he couldn't help but steal a glance. This time it's really you. I was afraid of making another mistake. I found it laughable. If not me this time, then who could it be? Yang Yun had already married into the Shen family long ago. By now, she's probably already seated at the Ningen Marquis's residence. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. I gave birth at the same time as my best friend Zhao Wanqing. She had a girl, and I had a boy, but just as the babies began wailing, a barrage of bullet comments floated before our eyes. Sigh, if only they knew neither of their children would live past their first birthday, how heartbroken would they be? Indeed. One child was pierced through the head with 12 steel needles by a grandmother who favored boys over girls and died in agony, while the other was poisoned by imperial decree ordered personally by an emperor who feared the Li family's military power. These two were truly born into the wrong families. But aren't these two best friends the most tragic of all? Not only were their children murdered, but they were both swindled out of their inheritances by scoundrel husbands. After death, they were even suppressed by Taoist priests, doomed to never reincarnate. Reading these bullet comments, my best friend and I both shuddered involuntarily. After exchanging glances, we swiftly swapped our children, seeing how swiftly Wanqing and I severed the umbilical cords and swapped babies. The barrage of comments froze momentarily, then instantly flooded with question marks. Am I seeing things? Why did they suddenly switch babies? Switching was the right move. The paranoid emperor already feared the Li family's military power. Now that Li Chaoyang has born a son, he'd definitely worry they'd kill him for the throne. That child wouldn't survive otherwise. Although the men they married were no good, at least this way both children's lives could be saved. Seeing this, Wanqing and I exchanged a covert glance. We both secretly breathed sighs of relief, because we all knew whether the other things mentioned in the bullet comments were true or false was another matter entirely. But the emperor's fear of the Li family holding substantial military power was absolutely real at that moment. Shouts came from outside the carriage. Your Highness. Immediately after, my personal maid Si-Hua lifted the carriage curtain with a panicked expression. Seeing that I had already given birth, Si-Hua immediately stepped forward to reach out and take the child. The first thing she did was check the baby's gender. Congratulations, Your Highness, it's a little princess, Si-Hua said with a smile. But at that moment, a line of text quickly scrolled across the bullet screen. Poor Li Chaoyang had no idea that Si-Hua, who grew up with him since childhood, was actually a spy sent by the emperor to monitor him. Her own son had been poisoned by Si-Hua. I couldn't help but clench my fists violently, my nails digging deep into my palms. I couldn't believe it. Si-Hua, who had grown up with me since childhood, was actually working for the emperor. Wanqing glanced at me worriedly, afraid I might impulsively confront Si-Hua, and gave me a slight shake of her head. I took a deep breath, suppressing the turbulent emotions surging within me, and said to Si-Hua, quickly wrap up the child so they don't catch cold. When will His Majesty arrive? Wanqing and I were nearing our due dates and shouldn't have been traveling at this time, but after the late emperor's passing, the new emperor, to demonstrate his filial piety, had specifically ordered all imperial consorts and officials of the 4th rank or above, along with their wives, to accompany the funeral procession, weeping all the way to the outskirts. Yet who could have anticipated that the carriage carrying Wanqing and me would suddenly lose control on our return journey? Fortunately, having practiced horseback riding and archery with my father since childhood, I managed to pull hard on the reins at the critical moment and plunged my dagger into the horse's neck, killing it and stopping the carriage from advancing further. But both Wanqing and I, frightened by the ordeal, had our waters break simultaneously, sending us into labor at the same time. Had it not been for the barrage of comments appearing, I would never have guessed that the mastermind behind this accident was the emperor. Yet with the barrage's reminder, I couldn't help but shudder in terror. I'm afraid the emperor deliberately let me leave the palace while heavily pregnant from the very beginning, also that both mother and child would perish. Wanqing was implicated because of me. Before Si-Hua could answer me, another sound of galloping horses came from outside the carriage. Chaoyang, are you all right? I suddenly clenched the clothes beside me, gritting my teeth fiercely. Wanqing then tightly grasped my hand, silently offering comfort. I quickly composed myself and weakly called out, Your Majesty, this concubine is unharmed. The emperor's voice finally relaxed. That's good. Do you know how terrified I was when I saw the carriage out of control? Now that I see you're unharmed, I'm relieved, I replied in a somber tone. Thank you for Your Majesty's concern. It's just that this concubine failed to bear Your Majesty a little prince, truly unworthy of the deep affection you've always shown me. The emperor's tone instantly became so light it seemed about to float away. What does that matter? As long as it's Chaoyang's child, I'll love them all the same. Upon our return, I shall confer upon our daughter the title of Pearl Princess. What do you think? I immediately replied with delighted and moved tones. Many thanks, Your Majesty. At this moment, Si-Hua came out carrying the swaddled child. Shortly afterward, Wanqing's husband Jiyu Hanzhong and her maidservant arrived. Wanqing, are you in the carriage? Jiyu Hanzhong's voice trembled with alarm. Wanqing's grip on my hand suddenly tightened. Then she replied softly, Husband, I'm here in the carriage. Don't worry about me. Take our child out first and care for them properly. At that moment, Wanqing's maid entered and carried out the hastily wrapped infant. Because the emperor had gotten a daughter while he himself had gotten a son, Jiyu Hanzhong dared not show the slightest hint of joy on his face. After hastily glancing at the child, he ordered someone to take the baby away. Wanqing and I were soon taken away by new carriages, each returning home. Before parting, we exchanged a gesture only we could understand. After returning to the palace, the emperor joyfully promoted me to imperial noble consort and bestowed upon our daughter the title of Princess Bright Pearl, allowing me to peacefully undergo postpartum confinement. The child was then entrusted to the care of wet nurses. I had barely lain down to rest when Sihua brought me a bowl of nourishing soup. Your Highness, you've lost vital energy after childbirth. Please drink this medicinal soup to restore your health. As soon as Sihua finished speaking, bullet comments flooded in warning me not to drink it. Don't drink it no matter what. The soup contains saffron that promotes blood circulation. Drinking this right after childbirth could cause fatal hemorrhaging. This Sihua is truly wicked. If not for Li Chaoyang, her gambling-addicted father would have sold her to a brothel long ago. Li Chaoyang saved her. Yet she schemes without hesitation. In the original plot, she tampered with Li Chaoyang's incense, gradually destroying her health. This led to Li Chaoyang dying of heartbreak after her son was poisoned, only to be suppressed posthumously in the imperial mausoleum stone coffin by that despicable emperor. Hearing this, I fixed my gaze steadily on the medicine bowl in Sihua's hands. He said wearily, "Put it there for now, I'll drink it later. I'm craving some butterfly pastries you made yourself, go make some for me." Sihua didn't know I was already aware of her betrayal. Without suspicion, she immediately replied, "This servant will go at once." After Li Chaoyang left, I promptly dismissed all other palace maids from the bedchamber and summoned the covert guards my father had given me. Go check whether there's anything wrong with this bowl of medicinal decoction and the incense burning in the censer. The barrage comments were all surprised by my actions. Li Chaoyang actually has hidden guards by her side. That wasn't mentioned in the plot. This makes perfect sense. Li Chaoyang is General Qin's only treasure. After her mother died, the general would rather be called heirless than remarry for a son. How could such a man let his daughter enter the imperial harem, that den of wolves, without leaving her safeguards? Exactly. If not for those hidden guards protecting her, Li Chaoyang's child would have been stillborn long ago, and that damned emperor wouldn't have been able to take advantage of the old emperor's death to exile her from the palace, trying to kill both mother and child. I lowered my gaze to look at the empty medicine bowl, then after a moment had the palace maid come in to clear it away. At that moment, a barrage of comments flashed news from Wanqing's side. Holy shit! Jiao Wanqing, citing her injured body as inconvenient for serving, promoted 2 maidservants to concubines for Jiyu Hanzhong in one go, and even took in Jiyu Hanzhong's green tea bitch cousin, who was secretly pregnant, as a secondary wife, but she demanded the child be raised by her, with no interference from the mother-in-law. Seeing Wanqing's approach, I immediately understood her intention. If she raises the child herself, the child won't grow close to the Jiyu family in the future. When both children grow up and return to our respective sides, my child won't show any special favoritism toward the Jiyu family. By the same token, Jiyu Hanzhong won't be able to exploit any debt of gratitude from raising the child. When she woke up, Sihua had already prepared the butterfly pastries. The emperor also came to my bedchamber, pretending to be affectionate as he watched our daughter. Seeing me awake, he immediately walked over with a smile. "Chaoyang, you're awake." I nodded with a gentle smile and ordered the palace maid to bring our daughter over for me to see. Seeing this, the emperor immediately said tenderly, "This child resembles you, so well behaved." Hearing this, I could only find it laughable. Resembles me? If he knew this wasn't my child, I wonder if he could still say such words. I truly look forward to the day he learns the truth. At that moment, Sihua approached with butterfly pastries in hand. "Your Majesty, the butterfly pastries are ready. Would you like to try some?" I glanced at her. "His Majesty is still here. Serve him first." Sihua paused her movements, then obediently lowered her gaze as she presented the tray before the emperor. The emperor waved his hand with a smile. "We don't care for sweets, take it to the noble consort instead." Sihua then brought the tray before me once more. I picked up a butterfly pastry. Just as it touched his lips, He suddenly crushed it, revealing a pained expression. "Your Majesty, this concubine suddenly feels unwell." The emperor swiftly glanced at Sihua. Sihua immediately set down the tray and looked at me anxiously. "Your Highness, what's wrong?" I stared fixedly at her. "I think I'm bleeding again." Sihua avoided my gaze with panic in her eyes. "What should we do now?" The emperor immediately shouted toward the outside. "Summon the imperial physician. Quickly summon the imperial physician." Soon, the imperial physician arrived. After taking my pulse, she immediately knelt before the emperor in panic. "Your Majesty, this is grave. The noble consort is suffering from postpartum hemorrhage." Hearing this, the emperor's face instantly darkened with fury. "What nonsense is this? How could Chaoyang suddenly have postpartum hemorrhage when she was perfectly fine?" The imperial physician immediately said, "Judging by Her Highness the imperial noble consort's pulse, she must have consumed something that promotes blood circulation." Hearing this, I immediately turned my gaze to Sihua. "Sihua, since my return, the only thing I've consumed is that tonic soup you handed me. What exactly is going on here?" Sihua immediately knelt down and cried out her innocence, but I knew the emperor would never let her stay. Someone had to take the blame for making me hemorrhage. Sure enough, the emperor soon ordered Sihua to be taken away for interrogation with a frosty expression. Then he commanded the imperial physician to save me. "If I can't save Chaoyang, I'll hold you personally responsible." The imperial physician hastily nodded, then quickly wrote me a prescription and ordered someone to fetch and brew the medicine. Seeing this, the emperor hypocritically took my hand to comfort me. "Don't be afraid, Chaoyang, I absolutely won't let anything happen to you." A cold laugh echoed in my heart, yet I feigned extreme weakness as I looked at him. "This humble consort thanks your Majesty, but should anything befall me, I beg your Majesty to take good care of our daughter." Seeing my feeble appearance as I delivered what seemed like last words, the emperor immediately nodded with grave solemnity. Little did he know, the imperial physician who had just taken my pulse was actually my own trusted man. Thus, after drinking a bowl of medicinal brew, I quickly pretended to recover from the postpartum hemorrhage. Looking at the emperor's forced smile, I suppressed the hatred in my heart and said, "Your Majesty, this concubine is tired." Only then did the emperor snap out of his thoughts. "Then Chaoyang, you should rest well. I won't disturb you any further." With that, he stood up and left. Seeing my performance, the barrage of comments erupted in applause and cheers. Finally got rid of that traitor Sihua. As long as she remained by his side for even a day, Li Chaoyang would never be safe if you ask me. Now that Li Chaoyang has both a son and military power, he should just kill that damned emperor and rule from behind the curtain himself. What's the point of ruling from behind the curtain? If we're going to do it, let's go big. Why not ascend the throne herself as empress? Exactly. That damned emperor currently has few heirs. As long as no princes are born in the harem, Li Chaoyang's son will be the sole heir. Becoming empress might be difficult. But isn't ruling as regent dowager from behind the curtain easy enough? Seeing the barrage of comments, my heart couldn't help but pound violently. An unprecedented ambition suddenly surged wildly from within my chest. That's right, since the emperor has shown me no mercy, why shouldn't I repay him in kind and strike him down instead? Even if I can't become empress regnant, I can at least become empress dowager regent. Isn't this far better than spending a lifetime subservient to imperial authority? Since ancient times, this world's power has been firmly held in men's hands. Why shouldn't women be the ones wielding imperial power? The barrage comments made me feel for the first time that ruling the world might not be such an unattainable dream for me. Lying on the bed staring intently at the barrage, my mind raced as I calculated the odds of assassinating the emperor and seizing power. I quickly reached a conclusion: it's worth taking the risk. If father knew about the emperor harming me, he would surely stand by my side. As for the civil officials faction, Wanqing's father is the head of the Zhao family, a prestigious lineage of incorruptible scholars, with countless disciples under his name. Wanqing is also the apple of his eye, cherished like a pearl in his palm. With Wanqing's persuasion, plus the fact that my son was once nominally his grandson, I'm not afraid that Patriarch Zhao won't support my son's ascension. As long as we can secure his support, the civil official faction won't pose any threat. Now the most crucial question is, how to eliminate that damned emperor without anyone noticing. Only when he's dead can I ascend the throne. Furthermore, there must absolutely not be a second prince born in the imperial harem. At this thought, a ruthless expression involuntarily crossed my face. The barrage of comments immediately erupted. Holy shit, what's Li Chaoyang thinking? That expression is pure murderous intent. Damn, that look in their eyes makes my back go cold. Like they're ready to kill someone. Seeing this, I quickly composed myself. Next came the period of postpartum confinement. Since Sai Hua had dashed herself against the wall and died after being sent to the punishment bureau, I promoted a new palace maid and a young eunuch in her stead. These two had been discovered secretly forming a paired meals relationship and should have been executed by the Empress. I was the one who happened to pass by and saved them both. They were deeply grateful to me. For this, when I was pregnant, someone had spilled oil and placed pebbles along paths I frequented. They were the ones who noticed and discreetly warned me. So I brought them both into my palace. The two individuals I promoted were both extremely excited and worked with great enthusiasm every day. Every task I assigned was executed flawlessly without exception. After completing my postpartum confinement, I requested the Emperor's permission for my father to enter the palace and meet me, using our child's full moon celebration as the reason. The Emperor didn't consider a girl to pose any threat to his empire, so he readily agreed. When I told my father what the Emperor had done, he indeed flew into a rage. That bastard Zheng Yi, he clearly promised me he would treat you well. I immediately handed him a cup of tea. Father, please calm your anger. Then I casually mentioned how Wanqing and I had switched babies. When father heard this, his eyes nearly popped out of his head. Chaoyang, have you lost your mind? I simply looked at him calmly. Father, if Xing Yi knew I'd given birth to a son, do you really think he'd let this child live peacefully? My father fell silent instantly. Then I continued, Father, since Zheng Yi broke his promise first, we shouldn't just let others take advantage of us. Now that we have imperial princes and military power, daughter believes I'm also qualified to vie for that position. What do you think? My father's eyes widened even further. The next moment, he suddenly slammed the table. Let's do it. At worst, we'll face execution of the whole family anyway. It's just the two of us left now. What's there to fear? I nodded immediately. I knew it. My dad would definitely support me. Meanwhile, the barrage of comments exploded with exclamations of holy shit. Is this a coup d'etat? Is the tragic novel suddenly turning into a female empowerment revenge fantasy? Father and daughter are both decisive people. They don't hesitate to take action. Hey, don't even say it. With Li Chaoyang's circumstances and what he's been through, not rebelling would practically be letting himself down. Rather than living timidly and cautiously under that damn emperor's thumb, might as well overthrow him and become your own master. That's right, Li Chaoyang. Don't chicken out, kick his ass. Seeing this, I couldn't help but curl my lips into a smile. I'm someone who takes advice seriously. Due to the late emperor's passing, the new emperor observed mourning for 3 months, substituting months for years, before eagerly stepping into the imperial harem to favor his concubines. But little did he know, during those 3 months, I'd secretly been giving him a taste of his own medicine by tampering with his meals, just waiting for him to enter the harem after the mourning period. Meanwhile, courtly social activities gradually resumed normality throughout the imperial court. I knew Wanqing must be missing her child terribly, so I summoned her to the palace under the pretext of relieving her boredom. When Wanqing arrived, I dismissed all attendants and let her hold the baby. Gazing at the delicate, adorable little girl, Wanqing's eyes turned red. Chaoyang, thank you for taking such good care of her. Hearing this, I shook my head. Mingzhu is just like you were as a child, exceptionally well behaved, never making a fuss. Honestly, she hardly requires much attention. Then, I turned my gaze to Wanqing. Wanqing, you've been immersed in poetry and literature since childhood, brimming with knowledge. Are you truly content to waste your life away in the inner quarters? You should understand my thoughts by now, right? Wanqing nodded after hearing my words, then she turned her gaze to our daughter. After a moment, she said to me, Chaoyang, whatever you want to do, just go ahead and do it. For so long this world has been ruled by men, it's high time we women took our turn. I refuse to watch another baby girl be killed the moment she's born. I nodded emphatically. Meanwhile, the barrage of comments scrolled wildly across the screen. Well said, I'd gladly sacrifice my slave-driving boss's hairline if it helps you seize the throne, TSK. I take back what I said earlier about Zhao Wanqing being spineless trash. You've got way more guts than Jiyu Hanzhong. Truly worthy best friends, birds of a feather really do flock together. When her bestie rebels against her, she can really take a hit. Reading the barrage comments, Wanqing and I exchanged a knowing smile afterwards. I asked her about matters concerning her husband's family. Wanqing, just let me know if there's anything I need to help you with. As mentioned earlier in the bullet comments about Wanqing, after her daughter was brutally murdered, her mother-in-law used her inability to bear a son as an excuse for Jiyu Hanzhong to take in numerous concubines. As for Jiyu Hanzhong's cousin, she had always been kept outside the household and bore him a son naturally. Jiyu Hanzhong didn't want his son to grow up as an illegitimate child, so he allowed his mother to deliberately torment Wanqing, causing her to kneel in the rain for 2 hours until she caught a cold and passed away. Yet even after Wanqing's death, the Jiyu family did not let her be. During their marriage, Wanqing had occasionally offered Jiyu Hanzhong advice on his essays, though he praised her outwardly for being well-read and reasonable. Inwardly he was consumed with jealousy over her talent and took her revisions as a sign of contempt. Thus, behind the Zhao family's back, he secretly placed Wanqing's corpse beneath a bridge, ensuring she would be trampled by countless feet even in death. He even had Taoist priests suppress Wanqing's soul beneath the bridge, condemning her to eternal suffering without hope of reincarnation. Reading these subtitles, I wished I could slice Jiyu Hanzhong into 1,000 pieces if he weren't Wanqing's husband, bound together in marriage where their fates were intertwined, her glory his glory, her downfall his downfall. Why would Wanqing have exhausted herself helping him revise his essays? Yet instead of gratitude, Jiyu Hanzhong repaid her with nothing but resentment. How utterly revolting. Uncle Zhao probably never knew until his dying day that his beloved daughter was killed by the top scholar he had so carefully chosen for her. Yet when Wanqing heard my words, she merely shook her head gently. You needn't worry about me, Chaoyang. The Jiyu family is but a trifling matter. If it weren't for our child still needing a father to keep up appearances, I would have killed him during my confinement month. After hearing Wanqing's words, the barrage instantly flooded with the phrase werewolf. Though we didn't understand what it meant, we were certain it couldn't be derogatory. Before leaving, Wanqing tightly grasped my hand. Chaoyang, don't worry, I'll take good care of the child. Then she hinted to me, as for what kind of temperament the child develops, it's entirely up to you. Think carefully about it. I understood Wanqing's meaning. If I only wanted to rule from behind the scenes, then this vast empire would eventually have to be handed over to my son one day. For the sake of the common people, we cannot raise our child to be a ruler without virtue. But if I were to strive for it and become an empress, then naturally, the more useless my son is, the better. I understand. I will consider it carefully. I nodded to Wanqing, but we all knew perfectly well that to rule from behind the curtains, one only needed to kill the emperor and install a child sovereign. But becoming a female emperor would touch upon men's fundamental interests. They would never let it go peacefully. Fortunately, though, we could all see the barrage of comments. Hearing the conversation between Wanqing and me, the comment barrage quickly flooded the screen. You must become the empress yourself, Li Chaoyang. Don't be foolish. How could having your son as emperor compare to being empress yourself, Li Chaoyang? You mustn't show any weakness. Your son might betray you, but power will only strengthen you. There's no such thing as mother and son in imperial families. You're already planning to rule from behind the curtain. Who knows if your son will turn against you after you return governance to him? Now is not the time for womanly compassion. A woman must be ruthless to secure her position. Just look at Emperor Wu Zetian. Whether sons or daughters, anyone daring to block her path to the throne was eliminated. Seeing the lines of subtitles before our eyes, Wanqing and I exchanged glances for a moment. Then, Wanqing gave me a faint smile, glanced at our daughter in the cradle, and quietly withdrew. Everything was understood without words, for I had ordered someone to mix a drug into Zheng Yi's food and incense, one that would make his body burn with restless energy. Thus Zheng Yi always felt he had inexhaustible strength. Consequently, he spent increasingly more time lingering in the imperial harem, compounded by the flattery of the concubines and the deliberate ingratiation of those I had arranged. Zheng Yi sank deeper into the pleasures of the flesh. In just half a year, he had completely grown indolent. Reviewing memorials gradually became something he cared less about. His temper also began to flare up frequently. There were even instances where he arbitrarily beat or killed palace maids and eunuchs. As Zheng Yi grew increasingly irritable, unease spread through the palace. At court assemblies, Zheng Yi also became more prone to outbursts of temper. The censor earnestly admonished him with well-intentioned advice, but in a fit of rage, he ordered the censor to be dragged out and beaten with bamboo rods. An official stepped forward to speak in defense of the censor, yet he was punished alongside the censor with flogging. Witnessing this, the censor, overcome with grief and indignation, chose to dash his head against the Golden Palace Hall and die. Now, the matter had truly escalated beyond control. No matter how Zheng Yi ultimately died, but his act of driving a censor to suicide will surely be recorded in history. As Zheng Yi became increasingly indulged in pleasures, he grew ever more negligent in handling state affairs. The queen repeatedly offered advice, but only angered Zheng Yi, who directly deposed her from her position. For a time, the queen also became utterly disheartened with Zheng Yi. She simply secluded herself indoors, beginning to chant scriptures and worship Buddha. As for me, I took advantage of the situation. While humoring Zheng Yi, I gradually made contact with court affairs and worked to win over the people's hearts. At first, Zheng Yi was naturally wary of me, but I had long cultivated a reputation for illiteracy and would deliberately misread memorials. Zheng Yi thus came to believe I was truly uneducated and let his guard down. Moreover, as the drugs seeped deeper into my bones, Zheng Yi found himself increasingly unable to resist feminine charms. The imperial physician who routinely checked his pulse merely remarked that he was exceptionally gifted by nature, brimming with vitality. This so flattered Zheng Yi that he burst into hearty laughter, swelling with pride. Thereafter, he began bedding 9 women each night, living in such day-night confusion that he lost all track of time. Yet he failed to notice that despite his nightly revelries, not a single concubine in his harem had conceived to this day. Thus I naturally became involved in state affairs when it came to military campaigns and warfare. Having grown up under my father's influence, I naturally possessed some understanding, but governing state affairs was something I hadn't quite mastered. Fortunately, I have the bullet comments to assist me whenever I encounter something I don't understand. The bullet comments promptly enlighten me. Moreover, I also have my father and Wanqing to help me. Gradually, I've begun to grasp some matters concerning the imperial court. Managing political affairs became increasingly effortless. Time flew by swiftly. In the blink of an eye, 3 years had passed. Due to nightly revelries, Zheng Yi's physical constitution had been nearly depleted. The imperial clan grew anxious at this point. If Zheng Yi had simply disliked entering the inner palace, leading to no imperial heirs being born, that would have been one thing. Yet he behaved like a rutting beast every single day, never pausing for rest. Despite such relentless sowing day and night, not half a fruit ever came to bear. As a result, apart from one elder princess, there were no other offspring in the imperial harem. Thus, it went without saying whose body had the problem, but the existence of imperial heirs concerned the foundation of the state. Since Zheng Yi proved incapable of producing heirs, adoption naturally became the best option. So, the clan members began pressuring Zheng Yi to adopt an heir. Zheng Yi was furious about this. I have bright pearl, which proves there's nothing wrong with my health. It's merely been 3 years without an heir, yet you're already forcing me to adopt. You all must be wishing I'd never father a son, so you can steal my empire. Thereupon, he decided to launch grand imperial consort selections. If the women in my harem can't bear children, I'll replace them all. I refuse to believe that with my dragon's vigor and tiger's vitality, I still can't produce a male heir. The emperor having no heir was indeed a matter that could shake the foundations of the state. Thus, the court officials could no longer prevent Zheng Yi from selecting concubines. Half a year later, a large group of selected women entered the imperial harem. Zheng Yi was eager to prove his fertility. As soon as the selected maidens entered the palace, he indiscriminately favored 3 of them in a single night. Yet after 2 months, none of the favored maidens showed any signs of pregnancy. Zheng Yi was both shocked and terrified. In the end, he even began to doubt his own fertility, thinking Zheng Yi wouldn't last much longer physically. At this point, I had someone hint to Zheng Yi that Mingzhu didn't resemble him as expected. Zheng Yi began doubting Mingzhu's parentage. Following the imperial physician's suggestion, he secretly conducted a blood test with Mingzhu to verify kinship. The outcome was naturally incompatible. Zheng Yi immediately flew into such a rage that he overturned the table, grabbed his sword, and stormed toward the imperial study. Kicking open the door of the imperial study, Zheng Yi glared at me with bloodshot eyes, pointing his sword directly at me. Li Chaoyang, I've treated you well, how dare you cuckold me? Tell me, who is your lover, or I'll kill you. Hearing Zheng Yi's words, I feigned surprise and looked at him. Your Majesty, please calm your anger. This concubine is wronged, I swear to your Majesty. I have never betrayed you. If this were a lie, may your humble consort die a horrible death. Seeing my aggrieved expression and hearing such a dire oath, Zheng Yi hesitated as he looked at me. Then how do you explain that my blood doesn't mix with Mingzhu's? I stared at him in shock. What? That's impossible. Is there something wrong with the water? Medical texts state that if alum is placed in water, even unrelated individuals can have their blood fuse. Whereas if clear oil is added, even biological father and son won't mix. Hearing this, Zheng Yi froze in shock. Really? I immediately nodded. How would this concubine dare deceive your Majesty? If you don't believe me, you can ask the imperial physician. Only then did Zheng Yi lower his hand, then said coldly, fine, then we shall conduct the blood test anew. I nodded and gave the eunuch beside me a meaningful glance. Just as we arrived at the inner palace, a palace maid came with urgent news. Your Majesty, Lady Chen has arrived with her child. I immediately said, please bring them in. Then I ordered fresh water to be prepared soon. Zheng Yi and Mingzhu performed the bloodline test once more, but this time, their blood still refused to mix. Seeing this, Zheng Yi immediately glared at me with darkened eyes. Li Chaoyang, do you have anything else to say? I wore an expression of utter disbelief. This can't be, Your Majesty, I truly haven't done anything to betray you. Mingzhu burst into terrified sobs at Zheng Yi's furious expression. At that very moment, Wanqing entered with their son. Upon entering, Wanqing immediately knelt and bowed respectfully to Zheng Yi. At this moment, my chief palace maid stared at my son in great astonishment and said, Your Highness, this young master bears such a striking resemblance to His Majesty. Hearing this, Zheng Yi and I simultaneously turned our gaze toward our son. Then, I suddenly became agitated and fixed my eyes on Wanqing, asking, Wanqing, after we gave birth back then, we both fell unconscious, didn't we? Wanqing froze for a moment before nodding in agreement. Yes. At this moment, I turned my gaze back to Zheng Yi. Your Majesty, I beg you to conduct a blood test between yourself and Wanqing's son. This concubine suspects that Sihua took advantage of Wanqing and I being unconscious to switch our children. After all, Sihua was already dead. She claimed it was her swapped child back then. But now there's no living proof. Zheng Yi stared fixedly at his son. After hearing my words, he immediately ordered someone to prick his son's finger and drip blood into a bowl. Before long, their blood had merged together seamlessly. Seeing this, Zheng Yi immediately rushed forward excitedly and grabbed his son's arm. So it was you who was my son all along. I knew it was impossible for me to not have a son. Ha 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 ha. Afterwards, just to be on the safe side, Zheng Yi conducted several blood tests again. Each time, their blood samples merged seamlessly. At this point, Zheng Yi was finally convinced this was indeed his son. He immediately acknowledged the boy's identity with great urgency and formally designated him as Crown Prince. Mingzhu was thus forced to return to the Jiyu family. The sudden transformation of a son into a daughter naturally displeased the Jiyu family. Under Wanqing's secret scheming, Jiyu Hanzhang's green tea cousin, in her attempt to frame one of the favored concubines, accidentally caused the loss of the child. As for the other concubine, she also gave birth to a daughter, which filled the Jiyu family with disdain. At the same time, the Jiyu family was filled with immense regret when their son was still with them. They hadn't taken the chance to get closer to him, foolishly missing the golden opportunity to earn favor with the future emperor. Yet they remained unaware that after Mingzhu returned to the Jiyu family, Wanqing would never give them another chance to survive. Moreover, their deaths would certainly not be swift or painless. After establishing the crown prince, Zheng Yi had no choice but to bow to overwhelming pressure and make me empress. At this moment, he finally realized that the imperial court was completely beyond his control. He began finding fault with me. He burst through the door while I was reviewing memorials. With icy eyes fixed on me, he said, "Li Chaoyang, the inner palace must not interfere in governance. What are you doing? Does the hen presume to herald the dawn? I'm not dead yet. Who gave you permission to interfere with state affairs and privately alter memorials? Guards, seize the empress and confine her to the cold palace." Hearing this, I merely gazed at him coldly. How laughable. My son has already been crowned as his heir apparent. How many more days does he think he has left to live? Soon, Zheng Yi realized something was wrong, because his words could no longer command the golden blade guards outside. In an instant, Zheng Yi's face turned as ugly as if he had swallowed a fly. He stared at me intently, his eyes betraying a trace of panic. "Did you replace my golden blade guards, Li Chaoyang? How dare you? Are you plotting treason?" Hearing this, I smiled faintly. "Why not?" Zheng Yi listened, then flew into such a rage that he coughed up a mouthful of black blood with a phut sound. Staring at the black blood he had just spat out, Zheng Yi's face showed an expression of utter disbelief. "How could our blood be black?" The barrage of comments immediately began mocking him. "With your black heart and lungs, isn't it normal for your blood to be black? Aho, are you going to rage yourself to death? Are we going to slay the dragon now? Pa, what kind of dragon is he? At best, he's a worm." Seeing this, I couldn't help but chuckle softly. "What do you think?" Truthfully, I knew from the start that I'd given birth to a son. Upon hearing this, Zheng Yi trembled as he pointed a shaking finger at me, then collapsed stiffly backward. I then deliberately cried out in feigned panic, "Someone come quickly. The emperor has collapsed. Summon the imperial physicians at once." Every physician from the imperial hospital was summoned. They took turns examining Zheng Yi's pulse, then one after another, they shook their heads. "Your Majesty," the physician reported, "the emperor has indulged excessively in pleasures and exhausted his vital essence. I fear my skills are insufficient to reverse this." Upon hearing this, I could only mournfully wipe away non-existent tears. "In that case, do your utmost, esteemed physicians." At my words, the imperial doctors visibly relaxed with relief. Zheng Yi, clinging to his last breath after being kept alive for 7 days, finally passed away. With Zheng Yi's death, his 4-year-old son ascended the throne as emperor. I naturally became the Empress Dowager, assuming regency behind the curtain. The moment I stepped into the imperial court, the barrage of comments flooded the screen again. Watching Li Chaoyang rise step by step to where she is today is absolutely exhilarating. Nothing beats a career-driven female protagonist. The only regret is that Li Chaoyang couldn't bring herself to kill her son. Alas, as long as this child remains, there will always be future troubles. After all, his flesh of her flesh that she carried for 10 months, it's understandable Li Chaoyang couldn't do it. Still, it leaves a thorn in one's throat. Rather than seeing that brat ascend the throne, I'd much prefer watching Li Chaoyang take the highest seat herself. This is why women can't accomplish great things. If you've already killed the emperor, why keep the son? How can you allow others to sleep soundly beside your bed? Even your own flesh and blood shouldn't be spared. If it were me, I'd have finished him off. Come on, aren't you all thinking too simply? If Li Chaoyang dares to proclaim herself emperor at this moment, don't you believe those ministers below would rather support her father to the throne than let her become empress? Rome wasn't built in a day. You're too impatient. Killing the young emperor now would be tantamount to telling everyone it was her doing. Meanwhile, I smiled as I looked at the frightened and listless young emperor sitting on the dragon throne. Turning my head, I signaled to the chief eunuch beside me to begin the court session. Understanding my glance, he immediately announced loudly, "Those with matters may present them, those without may retire." 10 years later, with the help of the barrage comments, I managed state affairs with perfect order. But to make everyone willingly acknowledge me as their sovereign and have the world recognize me as their empress, this was far from enough. The barrage comments said that only by bringing more women into the center of power and forming a community of shared interests with them could my position become more secure. I wholeheartedly agreed. Therefore, in the first year of my regency behind the curtains, I secretly dispatched dozens of strong and highly skilled women overseas to search for high-yield crops like sweet potatoes and corn. As mentioned in the bullet comments, I also sent another female general skilled in leading troops to Japan. As suggested by the bullet comments, where she discovered vast silver mines, filling the national treasury to the brim. The bullet comments said that men love to claim credit that rightfully belongs to women. Thus, upon their successful return, I immediately ordered historians to record their achievements and compile them into the annals of history. At this time, the young emperor had also turned 15. The imperial clan, unwilling to give up, stepped forward and demanded that I return governance to the young emperor. Before I could even speak, the young emperor scrambled down from the dragon throne in panic. He publicly reprimanded his royal uncle. "Why are you trying to harm me, imperial uncle? Can't you bear to see me living well? Her Majesty rises earlier than roosters and retires later than dogs each day. After merely 3 days of keeping such hours, my heart aches and I can't stop yawning. You're practically asking for my life." With that, he directly removed the imperial crown from his head. "I think Her Majesty is far more suited to be emperor than I am. Let's have Her Majesty take the throne instead. I'm exhausted and want to go back to sleep." Then amidst the uproar, he departed while yawning. At this moment, Uncle Zhao suddenly stepped forward of his own accord, pleading with me to accept the abdication as the leader of the civil officials. Uncle Zhao's words naturally carried weight. The civil official faction wouldn't oppose him. As for the military officials, there was even less need to mention their stance. Ever since the bullet comments mentioned undiscovered continents overseas, military expenditures absolutely couldn't be reduced. I increased the benefits and treatment for soldiers to prepare for future overseas expeditions, with my father spreading the word. Which soldier wouldn't know that their improved conditions were all thanks to me? The military officers naturally hoped I would firmly secure the throne. Who knows what treatment they'd receive under a different emperor? In short, they couldn't offer better terms than what I had proposed. At this point, I repeatedly declined, saying, as a woman, wouldn't I be rather unsuitable? But every time, the officials refuted my objections. Wang Qing then stepped forward and declared solemnly, "Your Majesty the Empress Dowager, if even you are not fit to be emperor, then who in all the world could possibly be suitable? I beg you not to refuse any longer, lest you break the hearts of the common people." So I stopped refusing and reluctantly ascended to the throne. Seeing this scene, the barrage erupted with waves of "Ha ha ha, lol, says she doesn't want it, but secretly overjoyed, right? Where's that guy who said women can't achieve great things? See this." The entire court begged our sister Qin to become empress. One word: absolutely exhilarating. This throne was personally abdicated by the emperor to our sister Qin. Who dares say her ascension wasn't legitimate now? Zhao Wanqing is simply the ultimate wingwoman. After discovering sister Qin's ambition, she went back and fed the young emperor medicine that induced heart failure every single day. As a result, the moment he returned to the palace, he was diagnosed with a heart condition and had to be coddled. He never got to taste the thrill of wielding real power, only the exhaustion of being emperor. No wonder he wanted nothing to do with the throne. Meanwhile, I sat upon the dragon throne, exchanging a swift, knowing smile with Wang Qing. After ascending the throne, my court officials advised me to choose a husband, but I refused. For women, childbirth is like passing through the gates of hell. If anything were to happen to me during childbirth, all the favorable circumstances that Wang Qing and I had painstakingly achieved would be ruined. The reason I kept the young emperor was solely for him to produce heirs. No matter how many concubines he takes, all offspring born shall be daughters. 40 years later, I passed the throne to my granddaughter by the sickbed. I faintly saw bullet comments flooding the screen with farewell. Your Majesty the Empress. Seeing this, I curled my lips and smiled, saying, "Thank you all. Without you, I would never have dared to imagine that a woman could become emperor. It was you who ignited my ambition and helped me reach this day. Thank you." The barrage instantly erupted with exclamation marks. Holy shit, I knew our sister Qin always gets what she needs. I thought she was the chosen one. Turns out it's all our doing. Hehe, with our spoilers, who else could be the chosen one? If not her? Mom, I'm awesome. I assisted an empress. As for me, amidst waves of drowsiness, I gradually closed my eyes after hearing the 2 stories above. What are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you like this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.